Good, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural MS Copilot user group for Aotearoa.
Yay!
We have a bucket load of people here, a lot more than we expected after the email was sent out, which is phenomenal. Come back next time, because we're going to order enough pizza for everybody. I don't want to take any home. So I think I'll start off the session. Give us a bit of a housekeeping. Facilities, if you need to use the bathrooms and you're in this building, it's out the door to the right, a few doors. You will need a key fob, which is hanging on that little thing over there to get in and out. Otherwise, you will be stuck in the bathroom. And we're not joking. It has happened before. I closed at 5:30 and that's it. It doesn't work very well. We are recording. So if you don't want to be in the recording and you're online, it's probably a time not to put your camera on. And say nice stuff and be very cool because we're recording, which is why people now know about my brain fixation. Be interactive. If you have any questions, stick your hand up online. There are people monitoring and they'll be able to answer. We'll pop it into the room or answer directly. Don't just sit and listen. It's boring. I don't want to talk too much as well. If you are in the building, in case of emergency, down the stairs across the road at the Sofitel, where you can wait. You'll be told everything's clear or you can go for a beer. Very expensive here because tourist prices, but we'll do. A quick run through our agenda. We've met for drinks. We're going to do a quick recap. Welcome to everybody and do some updates on M365 Copilot. And then at about a little bit later, we'll jump into top 10 questions we get about M365 Copilot. There aren't only 10. There are a lot more. These are sort of the 10 top ones we get from being inside the field, and I'll introduce you to everybody in the room so you can get a sense of where we come from, what we're doing. Pizzas for the next 3 weeks are sponsored by Fusion 5, so yay Fusion 5, thank you very much. Thanks for your And a quick run through. So on the call we have Master D, his new nickname, I just named him. I'm not sure if that's appropriate, but hey, Darrell Webster, who is basically running the group. Kia ora, I'm Troy, I'm co-hosting. And on the Microsoft side, we have Nick and we have Daniel, who's
around there somewhere. But hey, everyone, come along. Hey. We have such a good crowd here today.
So from a perspective, we've got 2 members from partners and we've got Microsoft as well. We have backing across the group on the board. And we're definitely hoping that a few of you in the room, as you get to your Copilot experience, will be able to jump in and tell us what your experiences is as well. So why do we do these things? Why do we do user groups? Who wants to get up at get to a thing at 5 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon? It's community. It's about collaboration and support. Make sure we support each other. This is a relatively new tech, and it's literally changing on a daily basis. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that, where the amount of times I've gone in and went, oh, there's a new thing suddenly that wasn't there this morning when I had a look. That's amazing. We're also about to give a feedback loop to Microsoft and tell them what the community thinks, get their feedback. And not necessarily only the horrible stuff that it doesn't do, but also what it does do, because that's a really good way of making sure those things stay where we are as well. We want to be innovative and growth. There's Copilot, especially in the Gen AI stack, is going to open up a lot of different things that we can do, and some things that we'll just do because it's there, and some things that other people do that we don't know can be done. So to be able to see that innovation and get that information back in the user groups is amazing. Before we jump onto the what's news, quick show of hands. Who in the room has actually got Copilot in the work environment is actually using it? So we're at about 30% of the room. Fantastic. The rest are interested in Copilot. Lovely. We're going to be focusing in the user group for now because we want to ring fence it a bit on M365 Copilot, which is the Microsoft Copilot for the Office suite. And we definitely will be bringing other elements in. Today's about questions and just setting a bit of a stage. And then from there onwards, as the group progresses, we'll bring in other elements around things like adoption and best practices and all the fun things that make it not just a tool, but a part of your enterprise. Anything from your side, Darrell, before I move on?
No, I think you've captured it well. This is really, I'll emphasize what you said, that it's a user group that's all about learning together, because like community is the best way to learn together, to share what we're all experiencing, seeing and trying things out. In my experience as a partner in helping customers with getting familiar with Copilot, that is how we try and contextualize it. It's all about sharing those prompts and those learnings and things that help us to learn together and understand. So we will, across the different sessions that we run, try and create those experiences so that these user groups aren't just about sharing things and presenting and talking, but there's going to be discussion and trying things out together. So looking forward to running this with Troy and with the team, and for everyone who will get involved and try things out.
I did forget to introduce myself and Darrell in a bit more detail, so I'll start off and I'll then hand over to Darrell to introduce. So Troy Gerber, I'm with Fusion 5, the people buying the pizzas, so yay. My role at Fusion 5 is COE lead for Azure AI and Copilot. So that's all I do every day. I'm tired of it almost, but it's really that really just give you a sense of how important this is in the industry, that they've actually created a role. The lead Copilot gives you a sense of where the focus is going forward. Darrell.
Yeah, so my name's Darrell Webster. I am also known as Darrell as a service in the community. I don't scale as well as my name sounds, but one service that I do deliver as a day job at Rapid Circle is I am a change manager and adoption freak. I love to help people to make the most of technology, especially in the Microsoft 365 space. And of course, I'm paying close attention to the developments around Copilot, as while it is a service that we do have to prepare our environments for, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on, predominantly once it's in, it's really a big job around adoption, training, helping people get familiar with how to use this. So that's my role, and certainly in this user group, I'm interested in helping that part of the conversation, the adoption of Copilot, and where it makes sense to enhance what we do at work. Thanks, Troy.
We go through a bit of news. So I think this is our first user group meeting. I think in the next one we'll probably have a bit more of a flesh out on the news. We want to really give as much time as we could for questions. We've got 10. We're hoping you got at least 5 more to ask as well. So I'll do a quick news recap on what's happening in the M365 Copilot space, and then we'll jump into the questions. So if you're interested in getting this firsthand, I'll leave the QR code up. It's not going to go away for another 2 or 3 minutes. This is a link to the Microsoft Copilot blog. I'll take you straight through. Everything I'm talking about today is available right there, plus about 10 other links. They cover most of the Copilot for M365, and they talk about a few other areas as well. You get it firsthand. It's a great resource. Definitely would recommend subscribing to the RSS feed so you get them as it comes along. So a 5 items. So support for additional languages added to Copilot. So you obviously are familiar with using New Zealand English. That's awesome. But we now have 17 different languages that are supported by Copilot. So you won't have to use English in your prompt. You can use your home language. The list of the different languages are available on the link I've put up there. So if you have a click through and jump in, you'll see the languages that are applicable. These are going to be expanded. These are the first 17. The plan is to have as many languages as you can, but language packs and adding those things are not always the quickest thing to do in the world, and they need to be accurate as well. So expect more to be popping over very shortly. This changes a lot. This news changes literally on every month. There's a different blog post around the changes. There is a place if you are a Copilot user, you want to get a sense of what Copilot can do. There's a thing called Copilot Lab, which is a prompt library and some information on how to use Copilot effectively. I'll jump and quickly show you that after the slide, because it's cool to have at least something real and not just slides to talk about. Copilot Lab is if you want to go and test will a prompt work or get ideas of what type of prompts you can use in the different applications and the context, and we'll talk about that in the 10 questions. It's a good place to jump in, and you'll have access to that as well. That is available through the link. You'll see that they've got a link to with the new Copilot Lab functionality. If you have a mobile device and you have M365 app, you now have the Copilot capability built into the M365 app as well. The Copilot capability in M365 app is the standard Copilot at Microsoft.com Copilot. You don't need to have a Copilot subscription to use it. It's basically something called the protected Copilot experience. So think of going to ChatGPT and typing in something, getting an answer. You don't know what's happened with your data. if you use the Copilot app, and it's also available via the web. We do check about it in, I think, our second last slide. You'll be able to just open up the app and get that protected experience. You log in with your corporate credentials, and whatever you do stays in your tenant. It doesn't connect to your data in your tenant, but it's a way of using generative AI using your tenant credentials to lock you down so you don't have to worry about where your data is going to and who accesses it. I'll show you this in a moment. Copilot in Forms is available, a new feature just launched. It's moving through the tenants at the moment, so if you have to do one of those forms like we sent you today, you'll be able to use Copilot to build that for you. Great build experience. We'll demo that. It was always cool to have one. The Copilot Success Kit has been announced. It's if you go to adoption.microsoft.com, and once again, the links are there. Microsoft got a wonderful adoption material around the different products. And now I have a Copilot adoption material as well, and a Success Kit that sets you up for working with adoption. I'm sure, as Darrell will attest, it's material. You still need to have a plan and ideally a change manager. We can take you through that, but the material there to actually get started and move forward is available. It's curated, it's really good, all the typical things you would expect if you are somebody who's rolling out Copilot in your organization. And last but not least, something which I'm looking very much forward to coming next month, that's been released in some of the US tenants, is Copilot summaries for Stream. So right now in Microsoft Stream, if you drop a video in, you can go and say, create a transcript for me. This will do it automatically. So if you have Copilot as a license and you drop in a video, it's going to automatically go and do the summarization, and you'll be able to get the summarization against the video. And also then ask questions against the video in context using the Copilot add-in. I think that's quite sexy, actually. Let's have a quick look at those. So I'm going to jump through to my browser, which is interesting. No worries. So Copilots, let's have a look at the Copilot Labs. So Copilot Labs will give you a whole bunch of different prompts, and you can then go through and say, fine, I'm interested in seeing what the prompt is to create content, and it'll then give you the different prompts and tell you what product it resides in. So Loop, in that case, Outlook, PowerPoint. There's a quick way to get a sort of a cheat list or a quick start of what I can actually use my Copilot for inside the different applications. Really great start. Microsoft Forms, you can now say, I want to build a new form, and you immediately get a nice little pop-up dialogue. We hope it will work in a moment. It's always fun when you push the buttons and they need to talk to people and waffle on. So while the technology loads, I tell you once for Christmas, I didn't get a red bicycle. Right, done. Cool. So now I can just instead of going to start that whole process, if you build Microsoft Forms, they're great and they're amazing, but sometimes it gets a bit laborious. I can just say, need form to capture its orders for my next event. Then you have to spell it properly and hit generate, and it'll then pop up and give you suggestions on what you'd like to add. Another basically quick way is what's your name? It's really great. So it's really comprehensive. What is your name, email address, what type of pizza? Nice pizza, thin crust, and I can decide which ones I don't want. So nope, I want that one. And once I'm happy with it, just go keep it, and it will build my form up for me, and I have a form in an instant. That worked really well. So really, really cool. And Copilot is a first draft tool. So what the idea is that once we've got this up and running, we can then jump in and make the changes we want to do to it. Go back. The blog is really to get all the news from. What we will do in the next meeting is make sure we have a bit more concise on that, and we'll focus on the changes and any feedback. We are now going to jump into our top 10 questions we get. We've got 10. There are more. There might be some that you go like, why don't you have the one about pricing? Because you can just ask us in the room and we'll tell you. So we'll go through the ones we've got, and then we'll take it from there. Ready? Let's go. Here's Microsoft Copilot. You'll be surprised how many times we get this question. So you can read the slide. What comes directly from the Microsoft site, but it's basically Copilot. The term is a catch-all phrase for Microsoft's AI assistants. So when somebody talks about we have Copilot, they are not saying we have, because it's like saying I have Lego. It's awesome, it's fantastic. You get a Copilot for every product, business applications, office applications, Power Platform security. So you'll get a Copilot for Word, Copilot for PowerPoint, Copilot for et cetera, et cetera. The Copilots typically are embedded as part of your experience. So you get it because you are licensed for it. So if you have Power Platform, you'll have the Copilot for Power Apps. Pay for it because you're paying for licensing. Copilot for M365, the one we're dealing with, is an add-on. So you have to have an enterprise or some of the business-based SKUs, and you can say, I want to light this up. And you buy the license for the person you want to give it to, you activate it, and the applications that are eligible then have it. Somebody says that talks about Copilot. Copilot is the general term for Microsoft's AI assistant. It works in the context of what you're doing. And there is a free version which will a little bit towards the end, I think it's slide 9. But the one we're worried about is Copilot for M365. Is that clear?
Just a quick question. Like I started Copilot as using GitHub Copilot. How different is that in terms of the underlying model to the new M365 Copilot?
I'll let Daniel answer that because he'll have the better answer.
So I think there's two parts to that question. So all of these technologies typically have a large language model underpinning them. But most of the models, and you can probably assume they're mostly OpenAI, they're going to be GPT-3.5 Turbo, they're going to be GPT-4, depending on the use case. But really where the good stuff comes in is the data that gets fed, provided to the models as part of those interactions, right? And GPT, right now, GitHub Copilot is using a version of GPT-3.5 Turbo, whereas most of the M365 Copilot, it's all using GPT-4. But again, without going into too much detail, if you ask Copilot to perhaps do something very simple, does it need to use a really powerful model that can do everything, or can it just answer your question, hey, what's the main ingredient of pizza? Doesn't need to go and use a big model for that. So yes, so roundabout the answer is yeah, they're basically the same models, but they are going to be very different in behavior based on the prompting and how they're used.
Cool. Thank you.
To move on.
Are they the same models, or have we got different models for security, for sales?
Well, we don't publish the exact specific models used by every product.
Yeah.
So it's hard to answer for every product, but certainly for GitHub, it's well known that it's currently 3.5 Turbo. For Copilot, as I said, it could be a range of models. GPT-4 for some use cases and others for others. But we do know they're fundamentally GPT-4.
There are some scenarios where the last part of the processing might be a GPT model, but there might be a model before that that does some breakdown and embedding.
Yeah, which is a fixed model. It's not a learning model in this.
Is it a learning model? There's no learning model, no. That's
None of the models are ever trained by any of the data that goes into.
So it's just Microsoft at the back end updating that model as we go along.
Calling the model against the data, and that's it. It doesn't try to retrain it or learn from it. I was at Ignite last year. One of the comments made was, we're not in the business of training models, we're in the business of using models. I quite like that because it sort of tells you exactly what it is.
Yeah, because that salary question, that was the most common one. It seems that the Copilot for M365 has been updated so we can't search for salaries, even without governance around that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, we only found it last week when Chris Lyons was doing a demo.
Yeah, so
it's like community. I learned something.
That's a good discussion point. It's probably worth maybe almost the top 10.
Point, yeah.
There's a good point, so maybe we'll cover that.
It's actually something we have in the security side. ChatGPT, that's another question we get quite a lot. So it's not, but it is. It's not in the sense that it's not ChatGPT. We're not using ChatGPT's infrastructure. We're not calling the ChatGPT API. It is the same models that OpenAI created that runs ChatGPT, but it sits inside of Azure and is lit up against your tenancy and is exclusive to you. And when it runs in the context of your tenant, your ACL, your security, your DLP, your everything. So it's not ChatGPT, but it behaves like ChatGPT because that was the original way. That's where we all suddenly realized we can now use AI, because when ChatGPT came along, went, oh, this is cool. I'm now an AI expert. One of them on LinkedIn at the moment. That's my joke for the day. So no, it isn't, but it's it is the same models, and Microsoft have got a commitment with OpenAI, and please keep you honest, Daniel. As OpenAI release a new version of the model, they will bring it into Azure and start rolling it out. So currently, Copilot on Microsoft.com allows you to work with 3.5 or 4.5 Turbo. You actually have a choice when you click through. Happy.
Question on top of that, is there an option to choose GPT-4 or GPT 3.5, or it's a fixed model?
Fixed model, like, no, I don't think there's a way to, correct me again, I'm not in the model workspace, I'm in the.
You can't pick it inside the embedded apps. So if you open up Word and the Copilot pops up, you can't say, I don't want you to use 4.5, use 3. If you go down the custom model route, or you go down the Copilot Studio to enhanced route, you can use Azure AI and you can pick any model you want, or combination of it. But yeah, not
If
something.
you use the Copilot app as well, there's also a little slider thing.
Yeah.
That's the one. I was going to add that. Yeah.
You've seen that, but like in the Copilot app, there's a little toggle that says use GPT-4.
Mm.
So there's an option there if you
Yeah.
want.
We'll have a good chat about the Copilot app and I would say that the free version of Copilot on Microsoft, I think in our last slide. So we'll definitely cover that in a bit more detail, because that's one of our go-to tools at the moment. What is M365 Copilot? We sort of touched on this already, so I'll sort of go over it, but very quickly. It is a Copilot that is specifically made for M365 environment. So the tools that you're using in M365 are you use every single day. I'll jump over to the next one because this actually makes a bit more sense. These are all the applications. I believe that's the final amount. They might have, that's the last one from the website. These are all the apps that have Copilots featuring in them. If you get an M365 Copilot license, it'll light up in all these applications. So they will now suddenly, you'll have a little Copilot pop on the right-hand side, and in some sense, times you'll actually have a Copilot in your ribbon. And you'll have a Copilot experience per app. So if I'm inside of PowerPoint, it's going to give me prompts and instructions and hints towards creating PowerPoint presentations and content. I'm inside Whiteboard, which has become my new favorite Copilot. I'll say I'm doing a whiteboard session on rolling out Dynamics 365 sales. I need a couple of sticky notes to start the discussion. I'll go and create my sticky notes for me, and I can then ring fence them and say, sort them into categories. It's amazing. It's like magic. So every single one of these will have a Copilot, and the Copilot will work in the context of the application and provide value in the application as an assistant. Accurate? Fantastic.
You want to cover the difference around Outlook with the new Outlook and the old?
It's on the, yeah. It's there, but great. So let's actually cover that now. So one of the apps that you would expect to use Copilot in the most is Outlook, and it's available currently. I say currently because I think in about a week's time it's going to change. To get the full Copilot experience in Outlook, you need to use the new Outlook app, Outlook experience. If you use the old experience, which most of us use on a daily basis, you're going to get let's say not a watered down, all the capabilities there. But last week at the Microsoft education event, they announced that 2 weeks late, in 2 weeks' time, 2 or 3 times, there will be parity across both, okay. Which makes me personally happy. I do like the fact that we're moving to Outlook about the spacing. So I quite like the old Outlook experience. The things that are missing for those that are using it is you don't get the create context with email. You can't click on the email and say create content here. I use Copilot to create my email. You can only use it for review and for summarization. And the create part is actually, I don't know if you've seen most of the demos that we all want to use.
So for Power BI, is that Copilot offered through Fabric or separately, or that's a part of the?
It's a separate license. You need to get you need to get Copilot for Power BI. I think it's on the enterprise or the professional one.
You need a Power BI capacity of 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fabric F64.
64. Yeah. So yeah.
That is a complete separate license, and you'll see with a lot of the biz apps or the specialized apps that will be an add-on from over above what you have. There was a question behind you.
Yeah. So my question is, when we are using it, so I don't see any option of the AI in any of these apps, but I can still use in the browser, like Copilot and the notebook, but within the browser.
Yes.
And it still shows that your interaction with us is secured and data is not shared in the organization. So do we have the license or we don't have the license? That the free version?
You don't have a license. We have a slide for that, but I'm happy to move ahead because the right question at the right time is what we need. Microsoft, remember everybody use Bing? We all use Bing a lot.
Yeah.
Years ago, I said to you that Bing was my favorite search engine. I would have been lying, but now it is because my default is Copilot. So Bing, if you now go to Bing and you want to have a generative AI experience, it's been rebranded. It's now called copilot.microsoft.com. Anybody on the planet can go to copilot.microsoft.com and effectively will have access to ChatGPT's models, and you can do searches and do all the same thing, the majority of the same things you do in the free version of ChatGPT. And that's completely free. There's an option to log in. If you log in with your AD credentials from your corporate account, you have the same capability, but it's going to add a little icon that says protected experience. The unprotected experience, that sounds weird. The unlogged in version, whatever you search for, it's out on the, it's basically just like searching on your search engine. If you have the protected experience, I'll guarantee that whatever you're searching for, that you put in that box sits inside your tenant, doesn't go anywhere, isn't logged, isn't retrained. You could confidently say, I'm doing a comparison between vendor A and vendor C for this customer, run through my logic and see if I got it right, and you can know that it's not going to be retrained, not going to end up in a model anywhere else. It's basically yours. That experience automatically obviously translates to the paid version, but that is a completely free version.
Troy, I just add that if you sign in with your Microsoft account, it does give you the ability to see a bit of that history of some of your past queries or prompts. So that's one other advantage if you're not using a enterprise account or Azure AD.
You want the ChatGPT signed in experience where you've gone to ChatGPT and you've actually bought a subscription. You can do that using your Outlook.com account and add that as a subscription, and you'll get that experience with the option to use different ways of adding data, like uploading a file or pictures or Excel spreadsheet, and also has a much more comprehensive chat history. But that's not for today. Freedom. Cool. Any other questions before I move on? Fourth is awesome.
You're doing damn fine.
That was prompted. What can I do with Microsoft 365 Copilot? We divided this up into 4 categories, and the reason we're using this terminology specifically is when you start using Copilot, you'll see they use this as well. So you can create content, edit content, you can understand content, and you can ask questions. What does that mean? So if I go into, I'll use Word as a good example. If I open up Word, I'm going to have a blank page, and I can say create. So I'm going to get a little create box. I type in what I want to do. Maybe it's inside a template, and I go, space, I want you to create content for me. I think in future sessions, we might show what that actually means, but create could be random, like add in a chicken noodle recipe, and it'll just do it because it has access to everything GPT-4 model has. Or I could say, go to this document and get the information from it and add executive summary based on what this document that's inside my SharePoint site has, and use that as its source. So a great way of creating. But on Darrell? I'm keeping Wallace there.
Sorry, yeah, I was just, someone's definitely making good use of the Q&A feature in Teams. What a rare occasion. If I could just read out Sue May's question in the chat there, or Q&A. Can we use Copilot in Microsoft 365 mobile apps? And I was just finishing the answer to say, yes, we can. So if you, for example, use Teams mobile, you can access Copilot in chat and in meetings and ask it to summarize the meeting, for example. And we might be getting to this a bit later on, but the general M365 Copilot chat app, which lets you ask questions and create prompts based on your enterprise data, can also be accessed via the Teams mobile app. I see Copilot in Outlook on mobile and OneNote. I use it in Loop as well. So definitely Copilot is alive and well on mobile apps too.
Also a default experience in the web experience as well. So if you've got the web experience, you'll have Copilot. So just to quickly go through these credit. Edit is I've got something inside of Word already. I have a paragraph. I highlight it as I go into this Copilot, say, please summarize this into 5 bullet points and make it a table, and it will go and do it for me. Very, very basic, very, very simple. Yeah.
Did it create in, I think which app I used, but I asked it to create because that's our next milestone with my wife, create a 40th poem for my wife for the anniversary, and I gave it a bunch of data about my wife, about the times and everything. Literally within 5 seconds, there was 30 lines of a poem. I was blown away.
And good content as well. Stand. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So if two different people try to create some content with some same keywords where the Copilot generates almost the same content,
That's a
how likely it would be?
I'll answer it. I'll let the rest of the gentleman loop in. So the answer is no. And that's the thing about generative AI. It does not try to give you the correct answer. It sounds weird and wrong, but bear with me. It generates the best answer that it has of the content that you've given it and the context. And every time it's going to be slightly different. It's never a cut and paste, but the context and the information will always be the same. So it might say it differently, it might give you an extra line, and it could be as simple as the words you use. I'll have a practical example. If you go onto Copilot or Microsoft.com and you say, create and I'll use this because it'll work. If you go, create a chicken noodle recipe for vegans that has got lots of garlic, it will go and give you a recipe. That's it. If you say, find me a chicken noodle soup recipe with lots of garlic, it'll give you the same answer, but it'll give you citations and where it got it from. So a simple change in your prompt from create to find will give you the same results, but different, because one is you told me to find something. But to answer your question, you'll both get the same answer. There might be slight nuances. It may be a sentence longer or a few words out of place, but the general context will be the same.
Yeah, so just follow-up question to that. It's a very good question. Like, what is the fundamental purpose of making it slightly different? Is it just so that people feels good that they not copy paste everyone's?
No, it's just the nature of generative AI. Generative AI is not like the old AI. Traditional AI is very algorithm based. So you go, this is A, this is B. If I show you a picture of A, answer yes, and you're going to get a repetitive answer of yes every time you show it A. The generative AI is saying, there's a set of data. I'm going to ask you a question, reason over it. So like we would reason over maybe a book and then give me an answer to my question. So it doesn't get the answer from a database or from a set of curated answers. It literally every time creates the answer. So you may very well get the exact same answer, but next time it might just be slightly different. What the basis is that the fundamental answer you're getting, so how do I make chicken noodle soup, is always going to have chicken and noodles and water and salt and pepper. If I say, give me the recipe in the sense of a French chef, I might get a little bit of flurry and flair and additional croutons instead of bread. I hope that semi-off. Did that make sense to the clever people in the room?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, the LLMs have an inbuilt amount of randomness built into it. Because like in our language, we have randomness built into it as well. Like if each of you ask me the same question, you're not going to get the exact same answer. You get the same gist, but it's not going to be exact same words. So in order for the LLMs to try and replicate that experience with us, to make it sound more believable as a being kind of interacting with us, there's that inherent randomness that's been built into it.
But does the grounding actually have an effect too with the Microsoft Graph that understands the relationships that we have with co-workers and data?
Yeah, that too, but that's kind of augmented onto it.
Yeah.
So the graph experience essentially modifies the prompt that you send it. So it augments the prompt with additional context. But when that entire prompt gets sent to the LLM itself has randomness built into it.
You can actually programmatically play with the randomness if you go into Azure OpenAI. And if you use something like Copilot Studio, you have an option to actually check some of the randomness through a little box to say, be random. So actually be a little bit more than just an answer.
So on that, with the randomness, does it actually look at your history of, you actually asked us 2 weeks ago, has anything changed or?
Because remember, there's different components, right? So the LLM sits on the side. It's a shared service. It doesn't get trained. It doesn't get updated. It doesn't know anything about you. When you use Copilot, the Copilot system builds the prompt that gets sent to the LLM. So the Copilot system knows about your history. The LLM doesn't.
The reason why I asked the question was because Darrell came up with the history. When you look at Outlook, you've obviously got your history there, so would have used that history to help formulate, in other words, to build your character into Copilot.
So we're going off on tangent, but it's a great tangent. When you're using the language models, if you use it at its source, as your AI, it doesn't even remember what you asked it then. So you can programmatically say remember something. So in your application. So when you use it in the Microsoft Teams experience, automatically they are keeping a history for you.
Yeah.
But that's just because the application has been told keep a history of this. It doesn't use it for retraining at all.
Thank you.
Sweet.
I'm using it. Oh, sorry.
Okay. I'll at the back as well. And then sorry if I.
So when using the AI multiple times, I noticed that it uses certain vocabularies again and again, like some words like revolutionize or delve into or tapestry. Is there a way? So now after using it many times, I feel like when I see a text, I realize, oh, this is actually written by AI or this is not. Is there a way to make it more variable in terms of the vocabulary or the sentence structure that it uses, so it gives it different kind of feeling, like a kind of different person?
So I'll also answer what I know, and I'm going to let the other guys jump in as well. In some of the applications, like if you've been generating content inside of the Outlook experience, you can say use this tone of voice, be more concise, and change it. As far as I remember from seeing a few videos, coming soon to a tenant near you, there'll be an option to actually have some personalization or say use my tone of voice, remember how I talk. So that's coming down the track.
Sounds like me is a bit of a failure. Sorry. Steve Morrison, Fonterra, EAP customer, been using this thing for a year and a half. That sounds like me thing that you're talking about has got a fundamental problem, which if you send a grumpy email in the morning, the rest of your emails are grumpy for the So they've pushed back the release date on that. I know they announced it, I think at Ignite or whatever, that it was coming, but it's looking like December now.
Because of grumpy.
Yes, because of grumpy.
Well, it's a great example, getting it right here. That is exactly what the feature is going to be called. It's going to be called Sound Like Me, where you can actually have it sort of look at what you've created previously and then create that tone. But obviously it's not ready for production release yet. And thank you for testing the stuff that we get to use now in advance. Any other questions? There was a question here.
So regarding hallucination, when we use LLM or ChatGPT, they make up a lot of facts, which sounds true, but it's not true. And a lot of times when we generate something that we are not familiar with, then we have to double check with the facts by Googling. So for like Copilot, how much better is like compared to ChatGPT?
I'll answer, I'll let the rest jump in as well. M365 Copilot, we have it on the slide. I'm not sure if it's the next one actually, it'll come through. M365 Copilot uses the LLM to reason across grounded data. It only looks at information in your tenant and it has access to under your credentials. So with ChatGPT, when it answers a question, it's using what it was trained on. And it doesn't have a source, it doesn't have a reference or citation. So it looks at what it learned, I think up to April 2022, and goes, the answer. And that's where we get the hallucinations coming in. With the models that we use inside of M365, the same model, but it's been grounded to your data only, and it explicitly has a system prompt that says you may not answer or give information that is not in the data set being used. And also the hallucination setting on those models are set to as possible, so do not hallucinate. So you're going to get a really great answer, and in almost every single experience where you use Copilot to M365, where you're asking for information, especially the Teams experience, it's always going to give you a citation and a source. It's something that ChatGPT doesn't do. It'll give you an answer, but it won't tell you where it got it. It'll just tell you it knows. And that's also why Copilot or Microsoft.com is such a better experience. When you do searches there, you'll get an answer plus reference. Where you got it, you can draw through. You don't have to then go Google it afterwards. You can just draw through the source. So yeah, there's a lot of effort we put to not hallucinate. And the big thing there is by grounding it in your data, only in your context only. Sorry, there was a couple of questions. Yeah.
Darrell.
I was just going to add that Troy covered it, but the citations actually, they're really quite important to check. You do want to go and confirm that the information it's getting is correct from the source. Now, I hear definitely the tone or the message behind that question is it really saving us time if we have to go and check every response to see is that correct or not? And it is. I think it's an interesting question to discuss a bit more, because you can come at this at Copilot and be a complete newbie in terms of what you're asking. Tell me about the engineering properties of the pipes that are used for creating milk powder in the Fonterra factory. I don't know. I don't have any background knowledge of that. So Copilot's going to come back and tell me some things. And if I just trust that it's given me the right information, then I could be getting anything. But if I come at it from a perspective of I've got a little bit of background knowledge, then I can check those sources or citations and understand a bit more of it. So in these early stages, in fact, I think any time we're using Copilot, it's still a good action to check those sources anyway. Just a bit like how we use a calculator and we try and calculate a math problem. If we just take that answer on the screen and think, oh yeah, that's about right, without actually checking it and thinking, does it make sense? We could be in for trouble. So recommendation there for anyone using Copilot or telling people how to use Copilot in their organization is do check those citations. And it is a huge benefit of the service, especially when it comes to, let's say, this meeting that we're recording now. If I was in Microsoft, I could ask Copilot, hey, catch me up with what we've been talking about so far. It will give citations that I can jump back to and actually see the transcript and even see later on the position in that meeting. So I can actually hear what's been said at that time. So citations are a huge benefit of the way Copilot uses this service.
Another question before we move was to in front.
Thanks. Yeah, so if we have a lot of legacy data, right, in our environment, and Copilot looks at those, and then let's say if I search for a document, right, and give me like a 5 years old document that's not that relevant anymore, any ways we can manage this?
Yes, that's a phenomenal question, and it comes up later, but that is going to be one of the big things you're going to want to do if you're rolling out not just Copilot, generative AI on top of your data. Make sure the data is valid and is clear. So if you do have 3 versions of your leave policy or 10 versions because you change it every year and you have not archived it and you have not taken it out of BAU data and it's available via SharePoint search, Copilot uses the indexing in SharePoint search or in Microsoft search to get its first level. It's going to find it and reason across it, and it's going to come up with an answer from that data set. So this is one of the things that we actually talk about. I think it's been slide 10 is you need to look at your data. Luckily, Microsoft have come into the party quite nicely at the moment, especially with SharePoint. You can actually disable SharePoint as part of the search experience and just use the create functionality. But is curate your data, make sure you have things like data loss prevention in place. Because DLP, by the way, DLP, if you're using any of the compliance products in M365, and the DLP and the information protection is better in Copilot than it is in SharePoint search. Proven fact, amazing. Yes, there's a question.
One of the things that you need to be wary of is that search is limited to 100 sites on SharePoint that you can remove. So if you've got a tenant that's got thousands of sites, which some large organizations do, might not be something that
Terms and conditions always apply that. It was to we finish. So to is yeah. So your data's not got to be right. You've got to have some good data practices around BU data, information protection, PII. Anything that you could typically should have in place already should be in place right now.
So yes, it's not a Copilot issue, it's more like a data governance or data management.
It's a data governance issue. Copilot is just an LLM across your data. It will reason across any data you place. It's not there to try and find a better way to not show you stuff. I just answer the gentleman, then we'll jump back.
So my question is, so a few days back, I tried a prompt like to generate a automatic, how to set up a automatic linting for a TypeScript project. And the step that I got like 10 or 12 steps. So in that response, it doesn't provide me citation for most of the things. It provides me for some of the points, but not for all. And it when I tried it, I found that in some of the steps, it just make up the NPM package's name that doesn't exist.
Can I, for context, where did you do that in?
In the browser one.
Browser one.
Yeah, in the notebook that we have in the browser. We have two options in the browser.
That's right, the notebook's recently new. Is the notebook for being your prompt? I don't know. That's a good.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously that's a programming, right? So you're generating code or you're generating tests. You can use a Copilot for that, but you're better off using GitHub Copilot for that because that is what it's designed for. It's going to do a generally better job. Use, say, the note. I know that you go into Copilot and there's a notebook tab. You click that, and that is just going to use the vanilla Copilot, which is generally good for code generation, but it's not designed for that primarily. So you're better off using GitHub Copilot. It's just trained, it has built into the prompt. As Troy was saying, there's so much more to you. When you interact with the LLM, it's not just what you say, it's all the other information that grounds the model. And if you were just asking it, give me some information or write me some code, it doesn't have that grounding on, hey, what should you do? Should you hallucinate NPM packages that don't exist?
Yeah, it does.
No. So you would have to do that prompt engineering yourself. But when you're using a built Copilot, it kind of does most of the prompt engineering for you. So you still have to do some things. But anyway,
So if we use GitHub Copilot, we can be assured that it will not make up things and that whatever the code it is, it will actually work. We don't have to Google it.
No LLM will ever be 100%. No Copilot will
up to 90.
It'll be much higher. And also, you still got to be an engineer to look at the code and say, actually, you know what? I'm going to have to do a little bit more work here. I might have to ask a question and say, does this look right? It's not a replacement. It's an accelerator. So the idea is, you still have to do a little bit of work. And that's where prompt engineering comes in.
And the prompt engineering, great segue, because that's one of the things that you could do with that prompt. You add an instruction saying, ground your answer in reference data, instructed to go and make sure it gives you citations. That's one of the things that we're going to learn in this new, I want to say new age of AI, but this age of generative AI is how to ask language models questions effectively. Our marketing GM is the phrase we're going to have to learn to be curators of content that's generated. It's going to be part of our new skill to be able to get the maximum benefit out of the answers. As subject matter experts who know the content, we can then use that 80% that we've got, curate it, and then finalize it. We're still going to get a efficiency gain by miles. It's going to be sort of part of the pattern of using these things. Right. Moving on. There's one more.
It's probably a good segue across it. When we're talking about the information governance, building that semantic index on top of the graph.
Oh, yeah.
How do we get data into there? So can it see my old things to the SharePoint sites that are online? Where do I bring in a Copilot Lab to actually connect to separate SAP instance or something to pull data from there? Out of the box, this is really looking at everything that I've got in my OneDrive, my library.
So the extension part, that's where Copilot Studio would come in, and the ability to create connectors inside of Copilot Studio, that'll give you extension part. I can't answer these, the semantic search question off the top of my head though.
And the Dave sort of like referencing, I take it was it within Word that you were doing, Mr. Horrocks? For your poem? Was that Word or?
I think it was the browser.
Okay, so it's just being chat enterprise. The references when you're drafting in Word, it doesn't seem to give you references for it. So it does hallucinate. If it needs a number, it seems to pull things. I asked it whether it was Friday yet, and it said, no, today is Thursday. This is last week. Tomorrow is Friday, October the 29th.
If you did the same query inside of M365 Copilot in Teams, you'd get a better answer.
Yeah.
There you have an option of saying, use my data, but also go onto the web. Where inside of Word, it's trying to just create content. It's not trying to get the most accurate answer. It's trying to create content based on the question. And that is why there's a bit of a joke in one of the last slides. Don't expect an elephant to be amazing at climbing trees. Because that's not its intent, it's its purpose. So we need to make sure we're using our copilots based on the purpose that they're made for, especially when we're in an application. That copilot has been fine-tuned in the back to work in that application a certain way. That's going to be part of sort of the learning curve of the adoption of or just not your copilots, only but change of AI in general. There was a last question at the back there, I think.
Oh, sorry, I'm Troy Darrell Webster.
Darrell.
It's just a quick comment too that we are early days at the moment where Copilot is being developed and fine-tuned in each of those different applications. Our richest experience in Microsoft 365 is going to be in the M365 chat, where it has, I guess, the most skills and the most reach to information. Whereas if you compare it to Word or Excel, for example, it's early days where each of those product groups are still building out the skill sets that are specific to each of those apps. So we are going to see at this point differences in experiences where we can't just go to Copilot in Outlook and expect it to do everything that it could do in M365. For those of us in the change management or training space, or even IT, I guess, we've often heard that phrase of which tool when. I believe that the new phrase for that now is which Copilot when, as a way of thinking about it.
There's a question at the back, sorry.
Yeah. So as far as you know, has anyone really checked how much time do you save if you use Copilot? If you spend more time with Copilot, what's the purpose of using it?
They can answer because they've been using it for about a year, I think.
Yeah, so depending on where people are in their life cycle, after about 3 months, we're seeing 50 minutes a day. Sorry, 50 minutes a week, which is down on the 1.2 hours from Microsoft's qualitative survey. But we're seeing that's a minimum of 11 minutes kind of a day, but we're seeing rapid acceleration across the groups to getting into 30 minutes, 60 minutes, multiple hours. And it depends on the role as to where it's useful. Our lawyers, we love a good lawyer, spend a lot of time comparing documents. It's a game changer. The government likes putting out 523-page proposals. We can summarize that in 10 minutes. And because no one's going to read 523 pages. But what it's doing, and it's starting to change for us, is instead of having that endless debate about what does something mean, we're able to get insights on it, understand it, and then get actions as well. So our first meeting isn't let's discuss this and agree. It's let's act. So it's really challenging to measure some of this stuff, but we're looking at saving tens of hours per decision that we make, and Fonterra is really slow at making decisions. We got some quantitative analysis from Microsoft recently on that's specific to our tenant. Are spending 4% less time reading an email. Now, if it takes 5 minutes, it's only a few seconds, but you multiply that by 15,000 people times however many number of emails it is, and we came up with a number of about 1,300 hours, which was 150 man days across the business in a year for just saving time on reading email. So it does work. You got to work at it.
We're saying the same thing at Genesis. So Josh, Genesis Energy, we're doing we've been looking at the same information as well, and we're seeing definitely increase in available time that now has been given to those users. It's a bit hard to kind of measure as to, okay, well, does that change, or you see that increase in productivity? Sit on the time to the business to actually determine as to what they can do with it. See that there might be the amount of meetings, and the reason for that is because, well, because they've now saved that time, they can now do more, and so it's now opening up really build. Just need to make sure that when you look at the data, you kind of really do drill into it a lot more.
You see it across Outlook, across email and meetings.
Meetings, yeah, Outlook and meetings, yeah.
Meeting summarization, intelligent recap is a killer feature. Everything else is just not mature enough. We've got
Email summaries.
Summaries is okay, yeah, but we've got a hypothesis that 20 to 30% of people don't need to attend meetings. We're waiting on Microsoft to release a follow feature for meeting acceptances, where we're going to have, decision makers and influencers attend a meeting, and everybody else can use the intelligent recap feature later on if they need to, because they're just being downloaded or informed.
That's where you'll see an increase in meetings, because you'll have, but you don't have to attend them.
Yeah, it's great. Was I mentioned, or what are the action points?
The calendar might look like
Check the question answered, or you?
Yeah, but if I'm using it for my personal purposes, just to boost my learning capabilities, it won't save much time for as an organization.
We've had the same experience that these gentlemen have had internally. I think we're at about 56 users now since GA. You need to launch it slowly. You need to look at which roles benefit the best. Not everybody needs Copilot. I know that's from a licensing point of view, it isn't Copilot, but not everybody needs Copilot. Certain roles will get a lot of benefit. I attend my life is meetings. If I showed you my calendar, you probably have a heart attack. I don't decline meetings anymore. I just don't go to them. Catch up afterwards, which is, for me, is a massive productivity gain. Found that in certain of our business areas, especially guys with large documentations, our bids team, they love Copilot. It's the best thing they've ever had in the whole world. They've actually created a little bid library, and they go and use the bid library to source information for documents that will, for them, it's like this is half an hour's work in 3 minutes. But if the same person in my team that does not use Copilot or doesn't have a reason, 11 minutes benefit. Benefit for a better question.
What's your context on, you've done the create edit?
Thanks for bringing us back on track.
You've answered that some ask, but what's your understanding and your context?
The understand part is where you can basically take a piece of content, the example of those documents from the government or tenders, whatever, and say, right, summarize this for me. Give me the breakdown, give me the 5 document points. And the ask part is, because you have that data inside of the application working, and Word is a great example, is you can start asking questions. So if I get those 56-page tenders, I can go, what are the mandated requirements that I have to have in place? I don't have to read the document. I'll get that answer. What is the minimum requirements I need for this? So you can actually start asking questions around the data inside the application you're working in, or across your tenant in the M365 Copilot. We're okay with time, so happy to move on. The next one, and if the sound doesn't play, I'll just pause and talk through it. But how does the M365 Copilot work? A few of you will have seen this video already. I'll let the video run, and then Darrell, if it doesn't play sound-wise, let us know.
Microsoft 365 Copilot is powered by what we call the Copilot system, a sophisticated processing and orchestration engine. It harnesses the power of 3 foundational technologies: the Microsoft 365 apps, that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and more. The Microsoft Graph, that's all your content and context, your emails, files, meetings, chats, and calendar. And a large language model, or LLM, a creative engine capable of parsing and producing human-readable text, all accessible through natural language. It starts with a prompt from you in an app. Copilot pre-processes the prompt through an approach called grounding. Put simply, grounding improves the quality of the prompt, so you get answers that are relevant and actionable. One of the most important parts of grounding is making a call to the Microsoft Graph to retrieve your business content and context. Copilot combines this user data from the graph with other inputs to improve the prompt. It then sends that modified prompt to the LLM. You may be familiar with what an LLM can do based on your experience with ChatGPT or Bing Chat. Copilot takes the response from the LLM and post-processes it. This post-processing includes additional grounding calls to the graph, responsible AI checks, security, compliance and privacy reviews, and command generation. Finally, Copilot sends a response to the user and commands back to the apps. Copilot iteratively processes and orchestrates these sophisticated services to produce a result that feels like magic.
We'll let that play through. And any questions around that? A lot happens before the information actually gets to the large language model. So all the permissions trimming that you would expect from your tenant happen, PI information happen. If there's anything related to something that you've labeled or marked as DLP, all that work is happening before anything goes to the model. Another thing it has to do, and I've seen a few people say, well, I did this thing where I tried to have it create a PowerPoint document and it took like 45 seconds to generate a 26-page document. That's terrible. 45 seconds to generate doing all that and then building it and then writing the notes and figuring out what pictures you want and then creating it. Yeah, that's not terrible. That's amazing. It's like literally like expecto magica stuff. So it's really cool. So the important part there in your yellow dot is grounding. It's grounded in your data and it's grounded in your security principles in your organization. Okay. Moving on. What does it mean to ground? I'll let you read it. Refers to the process of combining general capabilities with specific relevant information. Grounding information is one of the best things you can do. And when the models came out initially, they were awesome, especially ChatGPT was great. And people said, ChatGPT is awesome, but how do I make it read my information? So one of the things with grounding is to ground it in your data. And you'll see that with, in future sessions, we'll talk through some of the ways to extend Copilots. So you can actually say, not just focus on that piece of information in that SharePoint library, maybe a bad example, or this information I've got in Azure, or get the information from my D365 knowledge base or Salesforce, because we play with everybody. We call Burn, I said Salesforce. Fantastic. So yeah, it's grounding is going to be something that is incredibly key and allows you to extend Copilot very, very easily. Okay, to move on. The safe and secure, yes. We've gone through, we've had quite a few questions coming out. In 365 Copilots, first thing it does is respect your existing security permissions, information management policies, and anything you have in place to protect your data. It doesn't circumvent it, it does try and get around it. So the question, can I find my boss's salary slip in SharePoint? If you can find it in SharePoint by searching, absolutely. If the language model will find it as well. If you can't find it in SharePoint by searching, the language model won't find it. Your permissions are clear. So the question earlier about how do I make sure that it doesn't give me information that is old or irrelevant, make sure your security is in place, make sure you are archiving documents out of SharePoint that are no longer required, make sure you have versioning, metadata, all those fun things.
So could you also end the creation asking in the last year?
That's fantastic. So when you do a query, you could say, give me documents that were only created in the last year. So you could do some prompt-based grounding, which is really awesome. But at a system level, if you don't want to go through that, because let's be honest, when we go to Google and we want something, we go, Google, how make chicken soup. And that's we forget all the rest of it. We don't go, but make sure it is French inspired. And by the way, I'm vegan. And by the way, I'm allergic to garlic. We just go, how make chicken soup. Yeah,
always have them.
But a good practice is to extend. So same thing applies. You can do some filtering through your prompt engineering. Are we all okay? We don't need to stand up to like shake and stuff. Fantastic. Next one. Where do I start? Ensure you have the necessary subscription plans if you want to use M365 Copilot. You need to have it at a minimum base on the ESQs. I think one of the business SKUs as well. Some smaller ones have. Yeah. So you need to have a Microsoft license or an Office license. Yeah, you need to have a Microsoft subscription, and one of the business or E's or A's or All the
And even Fs now.
Fs now as well. Yeah.
You can't have an A unless you're over 18.
Academic license.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It gets very nuanced, but pretty much whatever license you have, there's very likely opportunity to use Copilot.
I've got a business essentials and I've got Copilot. It's added onto it. So that was cool.
Yeah, there's even a Copilot for the consumer product and be an individual.
Copilot Pro.
The nice thing that one is it's month by month, not year up front.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So you need to make sure you have a subscription and a valid tenant. You need to buy your Copilot licenses for M365 through the admin center, through your partner or your Microsoft account team, depending on the size of your business. NZD, it's 48 something, but let's just round up to say $50 per month. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
$50 per user per month, paid up front for a year. $3 fell over. Cool, fantastic. So basically $600 to enable a person to have access to M365 Copilot. You know what they're using it for, they'll be happy in a few weeks.
Pretty much if it saves you an hour a month.
And you can co-term it with the base license, eh? You can co-term it with the base license.
Seems I don't know. I'm not a licensing.
Will that cover GitHub or GitHub Copilot is different from this one?
Separate license, yeah. But just assigned, so it's basically assigned to a user. So a user leaves and assigned to somebody else. And they want a couple of people to test it for a month. Assign it to A for a week. Do that. Make sure if you are doing that, which is a good thing to do, that you have some parameters you're testing against. So just go Copilot. We have a guy in our organization from Copilot day one. Hardly uses it. Why? Away from him. Now he wants it back. But he wasn't using it because he said nobody told him how to or taught him how to. And that's a good thing for the next one is teach people. Optimize for search. So update your channels and apps. Make sure you have the latest version of everything so that you are getting the best experience. And prepare your organization. This is a bit about a single line with the big notations. Search channels, apps, provision Copilot licenses, and also user adoption and training. We have 55 active Copilot licenses in our organization. We are a Microsoft Gold Circle magical partner that does amazing things, and Microsoft love us to bits and all of the fun things. And even we had to teach our people how to use Copilot. And these are highly intelligent gentlemen and ladies that are working on databases. Because the first time I got it, I went in the videos for 6 months. What do I do now? We had to go through scenarios. In our COE, we have a dedicated group. Anybody has a Copilot license gets added to a distro. We have a 2-weekly meeting, similar to we have here, where we go through changes. We are measuring Copilot usage in the admin center to see who's using it for what. We have a dedicated space where people can actually feed and say, I'm trying to use it here, it doesn't work, or how do I do it in this? And to get so you need to have some sort of a jobs and change strategy in place. And it's not just when they get it the first time, but also testing. And it's a good way to have a couple of metrics around success on that. Are there Copilots I can use without a Copilot license? Yes, copilot.microsoft.com. Copilot.microsoft.com basically is Bing. Go to copilot.microsoft.com in my browser. I'll just do it from scratch so you can see it's not too much smoke and mirrors. We go back to the web version because I'll show you in a moment why. I'm going to get this experience. I've logged in with my corporate account, which is why I've got that little icon there that says protected. So this is what we spoke about earlier, but you can just use that. So I can go and log out of this, and you'll see a same version. It's just going to go and very, very basic. Hope it doesn't auto log me in. Doesn't. So if I don't log in, it's going to just give me this experience, ask me anything. There's a little notebook I can play around in, but nothing else. I can choose to be more creative, more precise.
Thank you.
As I click and sign in, I'll sign in with my Fusion 5 account. Hopefully my MFA doesn't kick in. It probably will because that's where we've designed it up.
You're on a different.
Yeah, I might have said exclude this one just for a second, but we'll give it a smidge. We'll hope and pray. As I log in and I get the protected experience, you'll see it says protected. And whatever I search for inside here, I'm not going to have any issues knowing that my data is nice and safe. You'll see once you get a Copilot for M365 license, it'll also light up that tab over there in the top corner, work. I can switch to the work tab, and now I'll have my work experience where it's going to be grounded in Copilot M365, and I can start using it against work data. And you'll see that there's a whole bunch of, it's starting to keep previous messages. And one thing, I have deleted a whole bunch of these before I got here, so there's only a few. But who's not got Copilot for M365? A whole bunch. There's about 70% of the audience. There's something I can do. So this is one of my favorite things to do. What is the latest from? As soon as I go that prompt and pulls up people I connect with on a regular basis. So this is obviously, I can say Jonathan Rico is my manager, and hit send, and it's now going to reason across Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, and somewhere else. And it's going to try and find any communications I've had with Jonathan, and it tells me he's currently authoring the partner boards document. Just making a note there in case you want to vote for us. Involved in an email thread and it now gives me a summary of everything I needed to know from Jonathan. You can do that against a document, against a meeting, HubSpot, so it's really, really cool. Troy?
Yeah. Yeah, so I might be messed it up, but there is an option to connect your organization to Copilot, and if you're looking for a specific file instead of asking John or I don't know, someone else.
Yeah, so the Copilot
file is located.
The Copilot for Microsoft 365, the one we've been discussing today, once you have that license, it basically connects everything inside your 365 tenant is then available through the search experience. You can just say, how much leave am I entitled to? It'll go into SharePoint, find it, bring out the segment, and a link back to the SharePoint file. I can say, what was the last 3 documents that John authored? It'll go and, if I have access to the document and my permissions allow me to see the document, it'll say these are the last 3 documents that he authored, and there's the links to them.
Then if it's a more generic question about the suit, does it go to somewhere like Google?
Yes, but I can show you because we have time in this demos.
We like.
Where it's getting all the information from?
So yeah, I'm in my company tenant, so I'm going to jump around very quickly to make sure I don't show you stuff you shouldn't see.
Remember, it's recorded as well.
Yes, I know, because my inbox it can be quite busy. But if I jump into Copilot add-in over there, and it's inside of Teams, it's taken a while to load. A lot of questions on the left-hand side. I'll now have effectively the experience I have almost in ChatGPT. If you think we go to ChatGPT, you get something similar. If I do a search, it's going to search across my tenant only, but I can, because I can go and enable a plugin, same way you can do in GPT. I don't know why it's so slow, but it'll wake up in a moment. And one of the plugins is I can enable web search. If I enable web search, it'll then use Bing's index to go and not only search my data, but search externally as well. And there we go. So I can search for web content as well. So I actually have the option of, in the Copilot for M365, when I'm in the Teams experience, say, just use my data. But you know what? I might actually want you to go onto the web at the same time. So I'm going to enable that as well. Yes.
Say I have a 20 pages long business policy document.
Yeah.
And it's a very important one. I want people to read it correctly, and maybe I want to build a Copilot around that. Maybe and I want to play in some rules. Just want to be careful, right?
Great example. Yeah.
Maybe we can do it. I don't know, M365 Copilot Studio, maybe through there.
So you can do it through the extension tool for Copilot for M365, something called Copilot Studio. We're going to touch on that in one of our future sessions. So to be able to extend Copilot to use a curated data set, like a document, a set of documents, or maybe a line of business system outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, you can create your own Copilot. They call it a plugin. You create the plugin, and you say, this is where the data is. It could be an upload into the backend. There's an option to upload file. Or it's inside of Dataverse or inside of a blog. Hallucination settings up as well, and then you deploy that, and it's become available as a Copilot inside of M365 Copilot. So ask the question. There's some setup options, but it'll then, if somebody asks a question against that data, it'll then go to that plugin, do the query, and give you the answer back. Or you could even create it that's only published out as a consumable GPT.
to like a tailored chatbot?
Yes. If you think about who uses ChatGPT quite like heavily. Quite a few. So one of the things in ChatGPT is you have a paid for subscription option, right? And in those ChatGPT paid for subscription, you can create something called My Own GPT. This is the same thing. So obviously it's a Copilot enabled. So the Copilot Studio lets you build effectively your own GPT and then publish it out either to M365 or as a chatbot or to be embedded in something as an API call.
Okay, so once it's built, right,
Yeah.
I publish it in the organization. So all the other end users of this app would also need to have the M365 license.
Is an option of publishing out without them having, but then you pay for it. Yeah.
Something that seems to be coming up a lot with customers, or increasingly coming up, is because of the public models. How do I restrict access to those public models within the work environment? Because if I just open a PDF, which may be allowed, but I don't have Copilot, I will just use a public model to analyze and summarize that, and then I'm feeding that model. How do I block the Copilot? It's a little bit like going back 5 years and when we blocked Facebook at work. How do we block public?
Same thing, basically. Just block it.
Yeah. So
a lot of the CISOs that we're working with, where they love the idea of having Copilot on Microsoft.com with the login. Yeah. Because then they're confident that they're giving their staff the capabilities of a GPT-4 model within the security of their tenant. So that sort of becomes their failover. Yeah. So we're not generally recommending
slip protected.
It definitely is the purpose. In our organization, we have close to 800 people now. That is a default policy. We don't block ChatGPT, but by default, your default experience for generative AI is Copilot Microsoft.com logged in. We get a lot of use out of it. We've actually seen it. Those that don't have Copilot, we've done internal learning sessions to introduce Copilot to Microsoft.com, and it's become a very heavily adopted tool in the business while we wait for our rollout.
Yeah, so it's the same as like 10 years ago when cloud storage kind of first came on the scene. You know, it's like people use Box and Dropbox and Mega Upload and all sorts of things. You know, but if you give them a sanction thing, say, hey, OneDrive is what we use to store your data in the cloud. Use that. You know, you can choose if you actually want to block everything else, because people will find a way. There's thousands of other sources out there.
That you can use. You can force the protected enterprise version of it just from a DNS record change. It's just CNAME, redirect it to the no chat.
Yeah, but again, that's just one option, right? I mean, one service. There'll be thousands of other chat GPT-like services out there.
That's why we use our endpoint web filtering.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Any other questions? There was a question in the back.
Yeah. So does the data need to be stored in the Microsoft? I'm talking from the organization perspective. Does it need to be stored in Microsoft-based storage, or let's say if I work with Jira, ServiceNow, and 100 of more services, so our Copilot.
You can connect so the default.
Or any SSO or something.
The one we buy out the box, the one we talked about, that doesn't look outside of the ecosystem by default. You can extend it. So the Copilot Studio, the extension tool, has I think about 1,000 and something connectors. I'll let
the Microsoft Graph has got inbuilt connectors for Jira and ServiceNow, so we plug it in via that. So then it goes to the whole enterprise, so effectively creating an enterprise search platform. And Copilot, because Copilot's just a LLM, it relies on Microsoft Search to give back answers. So you can say, find me this Jira ticket, or find me all the Jira tickets on whatever something. How do I recruit somebody? And then it'll get our PNC data out of ServiceNow. And so that's kind of how we've done it. You've got to be careful around your indexing limits. You'll have to look in search in the admin center to see how many documents you can index. It's based on the number of licenses you have and if they're E3, E5 or whatever. So one limitation that you need to be careful of. There are also plugins for architects annoyingly turned on. There's a plugin for Jira that's available already for the chatbot, M365 chatbot. You can turn it on and then you just need to reference that you want to use Jira when you turn the skill on.
Basically, you just ask Copilot me all the Jira ticket that I have, And then I can.
I wouldn't ask it to show me all, because you got no guarantee about what it's going to show you. And if you're thinking about a specific topic, ask it to show the Jira tickets on topic. One of the big limitations around this is search. So Copilot itself's cool, but search only returns 10 of everything. So if you've got a really busy inbox and you say, what's in my inbox? It's just going to give you 10 random emails and it's garbage. If you say, what we tend to coach our execs on is to say, prepare me for my day. Where have I been mentioned in email and chat in the past 24 hours? Order as bullet points. What that does then is it looks for where they've been mentioned and gives them a summary, but 10 of each. So there's a limitation. So then we had to go further with that, which is prepare me for my morning, prepare me for my afternoon, and things like that. So it's the search is the real limitation around this, and Microsoft hasn't given us any guidance. In fact, they told us to go away when we asked to speak to the product team around search, because they've clearly been put under a lot of pressure by the Copilot team, because if it's not Copilot, it's not getting investment. So it's kind of how we look at it. So yeah, trying to get really nuanced in how you do prompt when you're working with large pieces of data, or you're going to expect a large number of files to come back.
Is there any roadmap for Copilot? Let's say one organization to get more than 10.
There's a roadmap for all the Microsoft products on their roadmap. They actually have a roadmap site for all the products to tell you what's in development, what's in release, what's in testing. So you actually can see exactly what they're currently building on, what they're working on, and what's coming out.
If too many organizations ask for a specific feature, Microsoft might work on
specific features. The answer, the simple answer and the truthful answer is you go to the Microsoft roadmap site and you suggest a feature, and it gets uploaded. Or you are Fonterra or Genesis, and you go speak to your Microsoft rep and you tell them, and they tell, or you talk to your partner who might have a relationship. I'm lucky to be work with the engineering team for Copilot Studio, so I have 2 weekly calls with them, and then they ask us, what are your customers saying? Please give us. And we tell them, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, but there are lots of paths to get through. Microsoft do want to make it better. So we're good. So to answer your original question, and thank you for that, I think you should present at our next session, because you have something serious and not joking.
It's a plug for us. We got a fireside chat in April, Microsoft's AI Day, so you're going to see something interesting.
We'd be grateful to give to the community about your experiences firsthand. So the answer is yes, and there's multiple. There's actually 3 different ways right now, and some of them can be curated with it's just connect to Jira, or you can connect to a specific query that you define that is then that connection only. So the answer is yes, but you need to do it well. We are done with the main ones. I want to bring up a last slide just to throw things out. Expect the elephant to be great at climbing a tree. To make sure you don't expect your Copilot to do more than it's supposed to do. Darrell mentioned earlier, GPT came out 19 months ago. Copilot went into GA weeks, I think. It's been about 2 months now.
Yeah.
It extended to large organization last year. Everybody knows Sam Altman is CEO. I'm asking. I never assume. CEO of OpenAI. He was in an interview in a podcast recently with not Joe Rogan. And they asked him what he likes the most about GPT 4.5, and he went, "I think it's a bit crap, actually." And I was like, "Why do you think it's a bit?" And he goes, "Well, when 3.5 came out, we thought it was the best thing ever. And now we've got 4. I'm more interested in what 5 is going to do." So we are literally seeing enhancements to these, and then these could be brought into the Microsoft stack. The applications need to be updated to leverage the new capability of these things. So we're going to see constant improvement. So cognizant of that. You are at the early part of an amazing journey. Use the prompt tools. That was a great example. Teaching people how to talk to any generative AI effectively. Lots of prompt information, as much information as you can. Microsoft got prompt guides you can download on best practices. We use them to train our staff on how to build the prompt up. I'll give you a real world example because it's always fun to have. Our marketing manager was putting together a script for the video we're doing for our website. He said, "You know, Troy, I get these scripts from the agency and why can't Copilot just do it for me? And we gave the Copilot the basic tenants that she gave the agency, and the script she got back was terrible because it wasn't in the format that she wanted and didn't make sense. All we did was we asked the exact same question, and then we said, use this as an example, and we paste the script from the previous one and said, use that as an example, and it gave her exactly what she wanted. Well, that's and what you're effectively doing there is you're grounding your prompt as well. You're saying, I need this to do this, and I want it that way, and then you're going to get a better response. Is it always going to be perfect? No, but you're going to get a way better result if you tell it what you want. As simple as saying, give it to me in formatted bullet points makes a difference. You get it formatted bullet points. Saying, give me a concise summary or give me a detailed summary will give you a difference. Create a habit and use it all the time. So that is really important. Once you've got it, don't go, okay, I'll play with it for an hour tomorrow. Make it part of your work habit. So it just becomes muscle memory. Just start using it. And I can speak for myself. It's now part of my muscle memory. I just open up Outlook. The first thing I do is generate summary. Long emails, 5 long, summary. Summaries can be better, but it's way better than having to read a mail trail of 10 different people having an opinion. The killer tool, the best thing on the planet is meeting recap. Man, I don't ever want to live without meeting recap again. Honestly, pay for my own Copilot license if they take it away from me. It saves so much time. Save to SharePoint. You need to save your documents to make them referenceable, and SharePoint is the place you want to save that. There is a Copilot for OneDrive. You don't always get OneDrive files popping up in the drop-downs. Don't save them all the time. SharePoint is the better place to put it. Excel must be saved. If you want to use the Excel Copilot, it has to be saved into SharePoint or OneDrive before it will start working. Excel has going through a rebuild, I understand. I think it was mentioned last week at the Action Roadshow. You were there, one? Yep. So there is some rework on the Excel side, so expect that. So that's been really great. The killer tools, if you want to play around with, last trick before I finish off, one of the things that you will find is really great to do is to take a Word document. Say you've got a summary. I recently did a review of a customer's Power App and automation. They wanted to make sure everything was right. And I created a suggestion list with some screenshots of what they should do in the steps forward. That was in a Word document. I always like to present it back in PowerPoint. Typically now I've got to go cut and paste. Because I used H1 tags and H2 tags and I had a nicely formatted document, I was able to open up PowerPoint and say, create a PowerPoint slide based off this document. And because it was well formatted, I got a close to perfect PowerPoint presentation of my document. If you don't have the great formatting, you're still going to get an output, but it's not going to be as amazing. So good practices around formatting information is going to give you a better creation experience in some of the tools. That is us. We will be communicating our next event via the meetup group. Hope everybody learned something. Are there any questions? We have a good solid 4 minutes to go through a couple.
Not a question, just want to share. I think we talk about accuracy, right? Yeah. What sort of one trick in my place we use, which I feel is helpful. I'm not sure if it's across board, is that Copilot to think a little bit.
Yes.
For example, right before it come up the answer, you say, hey, before you give the answer, can you do the solution yourself and then compare your solution against whatever we're checking against? So the Copilot wouldn't rush to the answer. And also say, hey, again, it's not 100% accurate. I just say, can you, before you give me the answer, can you check the real world references first and then come out the answer? So then actually take slower a little bit, but I think accuracy improved a little bit too.
If you're using that in Copilot, Microsoft.com, ChatGPT, all those, it's good to do that. Never assume that it's going to get the right answer. There's a question online.
No, I was going to add to that. That's called self-critique. So it's a prompt engineer. All the prompt engineering techniques you can learn about online all aligned to this. So reward functions. Promise the AI you'll give it a biscuit. No, I'm not joking.
Dave was very kind enough because we didn't have a swag on our first event. He donated a few prizes. So people that ask the most questions, I'm going to randomly walk over and give you an option to choose one of the prizes. And then thank Dave afterwards. because what is an event without prizes? We will definitely have stickers next time.
Yeah.
Limited edition Copilot stickers. So I don't know if you'd like an office hat, an Adobe hat, a cup, an XGen, I don't know what that is, or a water bottle, but pick one. A cup. Fantastic. I'm going to go back to Ontario, guys, and have a look. And for you, because you asked amazing questions. Power bank, hat, or water bottle.
I'm going to Microsoft.
Cool, fantastic. Gentlemen, are you interested in this bag? I've
got Copilot swag already.
This is not Copilot swag. Top nomination. I think a lot of other questions we had from the lady in the front. I'm going to give you a water bottle if you don't look like a hat type of person at all. If you can't get your own stuff. Great questions from this side as well. Power bank hats. Cool.
Well, we just got Adobe, so that's cool.
There we go. We also would like something, otherwise Dave's got to take this home. Power bank, fantastic. Adobe cap or an XGen cap? Yeah, $10, $5, $1. I'll pay you. That's okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. We will be doing the next event in about a month's time. We'll send out the comms. Thank you for attending. If you would like to present back at these events, that's the idea of community events, not to have us talk to you. Do you share? I'm going to point to the gentleman in the back because they have wonderful stories. So they were on early access program, or you have an experience where you've used Copilot, and it doesn't need to be an hour like we did now. It could be a 10-minute session. Let us know. We'll bring it in. Community is lovely. Next time we'll make sure we have a lot more pizza and beer. We had double the amount of people who said they were coming, so that's awesome. The recording will be sent out in a couple of days. Once it's uploaded, we'll upload to our YouTube channel. That's linked in the group access as well.
Give a shout out to next Thursday for those that are starting to use Fabric and also do use Power BI. There's a meetup group right here. It's on Meetup, so by all means have a look at Meetup, the Power BI Fabric, and I'll see you there.
Any online questions, Dave?
No, really. I think we've covered them all. That have been covered already.
And we finished exactly at 7 p.m. How's that? We'll drop a Microsoft form out in a day or two asking for topics you'd like to be covered. What we have on the agenda at the moment is the adoption and change side. We have a session planned on readiness, so readiness assessments and how you can actually get ready for Copilot. And then we have a dedicated session around prompting and getting the most out of the tools, and we actually go through some of the Copilots. So those are currently on the cards. We have 4. That still doesn't mean you can't come in and do a 10-minute section on how Copilot made your life better. The Copilot sucked and was horrible. You post it on Facebook. We're not true. I'm joking. You can tell us as well. But so please let us know and contribute. And don't forget there'll be stickers, so it's cool. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye online.